Now that the hammer and the disconnector have been removed, you see I went ahead and pushed the pin all the way through to hold it, the last round bolt hold open assembly together. And from this point on, before I move on and show you some of the particulars with the safety, the roll pin safety that you might have to do some fitting on. I mentioned earlier that you're keeping this in here as a way to hold all of this together. I am going to go ahead and pull this out and show you what happens, just in case this happens to you, that you know what you have to kind of look forward to, or what's going to happen at least. So as you pull this out, that spring, that wire spring that you see in there, is what adds tension to the last round bolt hold open. So when you pull that out, this goes very slack. You see the coil as it pops out. This loop in the spring that goes in between the grooves right here, and then fishes up through a hole. Here's that spring. Goes up through a hole that is drilled in your last round bolt open, which you can see right there. So I believe if I were to unthread this all the way, because now this is basically just like a screw threaded through this arm right here, that you would be able to pull this whole assembly out. I never went that far. I just made sure that I didn't rotate the switch too much, because I wanted it to all be the same geometry that it came from the factory. I don't know what would happen if you over tighten it or under tighten it. So that's about as far as it's going to go. It's not going to fall out if that spring comes out on you. And if you go to reassemble it, you just have to make sure that it goes in with the loop facing up towards the top of the gun, and that loop goes in between this groove right here, goes in the center of that channel, and then that assembly together is going to pick up your trigger pin once you go to put it back in. So it is a bit of a pain. It's nothing, I don't think I'm going to be able to capture it on camera on how to get it back together. I'm going to go ahead and redo that off camera right now, but just remember, you fish it in from the aft of the gun, loop side towards the top of the receiver, slide it in between this arm, make sure the loop goes in between that groove, and as you see, I have not picked up the hole that's in that last round bolt hole open. So that is the first thing that you're going to have to pick up when you go to reinstall this spring. You're going to hold it in position. Again, I can't hold the gun and do it at the same time, but that's just the process of getting that back together. All right, got the last round bolt hold open assembly put back together. And again, just to show you, long leg picks up the hole that goes through the button itself, loops through. I can get the camera to focus. Loops through the centerpiece here, and then goes underneath. So that will give you the spring tension, pushes it down so that when the magazine follower engages after the last round, it gives you some downward pressure on the last round bolt hold open. So I'm going to put this to the side, and I'm going to go into the trigger itself. So with your ALG kit, you're going to get, this is factory. This is what gives you the tension on your return tension on your trigger. You're going to get a new trigger, you're going to get a new disconnector, and you are going to get a new disconnector spring. So showing a little bit on how this is modified by by Dissident Arms. Looks like they do remove some material here. There is some material that has been shaved off here. The disconnector has been profiled as well, and it's also been machined down on this side. I thought it was kind of strange that they don't refinish that in any way whatsoever. It's just bare metal. So I know, at least for me, when I went through and went and reinstalled everything, I took a Q-tip along with some high temp grease and just kept, put that on there to keep it from corroding out. So the part with these ALG triggers that can be a bit tedious is in this boss right here. You can see there's a roll pin installed. And what that roll pin is for, and if you've never installed an ALG trigger before, this is a safety. So the way that an AK safety works is it swings out of the way. And I might even have this backwards. I'm not, let's see. I do have this backwards. This tang engages your trigger like so that you can't possibly pull the trigger, because when the safety is engaged, it's a mechanical stop that keeps the trigger from being able to engage. So on some AKs, there is some tolerance between the trigger along with the safety lever itself. And when you go to engage the safety, or when you do engage it into safety, you can still pull the trigger. It'll still allow you to fire. So that's no good. So if you look at the instructions or read the instructions with the trigger, there should be no more than 10 thousandths clearance in between this tang on your safety and this nub that is supposed to keep the trigger from moving. And that is where this comes into play. So I can tell you that when I did my Arsenal SLR 106, there was very little material that I had to remove. The roll pin itself was probably about twice this height for what you're seeing right now. I had to remove quite a bit of material. Now they do give you two in case you screw up one of them. Your best bet is, and the best piece of advice I can give you, is to make sure you just do it slowly and progressively, because they do say that no more than 10 thousandths clearance should be between the trigger along with your safety, and you just have to go little by little. Now I had a Dremel tool with a sanding disc that I just slowly took a little bit away, and then took a hand jeweler's file and took off any kind of burrs. And just by trial and error, you have to go put it back into the gun, go put the safety back in, and then check to see if you have clearance. And like I mentioned, this was about twice the height, and I probably went in and out, in and out, in and out, countless numbers of times, a ton. I mean, for hours I was doing this because I was just trying to be very careful that I was not removing too much. I don't know how hard it would be to get this roll pin out. It was pretty tough to get in, so I didn't want to deal with having to remove this one and go and start over from scratch. So I just went little by little. I would highly encourage you to do the same thing. Now, on to the next step. What I'm going to show you is this is where I probably I know I cost myself quite a bit of time. And let me grab the rifle and put it back on the bench.